How are you guys doing? I hope you guys are doing well. Um, I am doing okay. You know, as good as I can be. Overall, I would say that I'm doing well. For those of you who are all caught up, I hope you all are all caught up. Uh, I lost my grandpa, who was like a dad to me for a long time when the relationship between me and my actual dad, his son, wasn't the best. But yeah, he passed away, and I am very sad. This will be like the first death in the family I've ever experienced, which sounds really weird as a 30-year-old woman. But because of the way that I grew up in isolation from all sides of my family with my mother, I didn't really lose anybody. And so this is like the first death for me, and it hurts. But at the same time, I am glad that he's resting now, because for like the past 2 years, we've had so many scares. It was like, oh, he's about to die. Oh, no, he's okay. Oh, he had another stroke. Oh, no, he's okay. Oh, he's in ICU. Oh, no, he's okay. So it's just been like this back and forth, back and forth. And like, me and my family, we've prepared ourselves for his death like multiple times from these scares. So I'm sad, but I'm glad that he's resting now and he's no longer in pain. So I saw someone comment on YouTube specifically. They were like, oh, sorry for your loss. Take care of yourself. Don't worry about uploading videos. We'll be here for you, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, nope, I need to do this. This is like, I'm not ignoring my feelings. When I feel sad, I feel sad. When I cry. But I want to keep slash need to keep doing things like the world. I can't let the world stop and just wallow in my misery. This, even though it's been really heavy, has also been very helpful. So, um, Kylie said I lost my grandma last year, and that was my first time going through a loss. I was 27. I completely understand the back and forth. Yeah. So it's like, I feel like I'm not as devastated as I could be, because like it was just so much back and forth. And even like a couple weeks ago, I went to visit him and we took him off dialysis and everything. And I kind of prepared myself then, like, okay, his heart rate and everything was slowing. So I was like, okay, he's dying. This is the last time I'll see him. So I don't know. And said, sending all of my support to you, and doing what you like helps a lot sometimes. Yeah. Like, I don't want to just sit around and cry and mope. Like, I'm still going to paint. I'm still going to do my job and I'm still going to do this. So anyway, that's just a little update. So no, none of you need to go telling me, don't do any videos, take care of yourself, because I'm going to do my videos. I want to do my videos. So let's see. I think I spent about 5 minutes just rambling. I'm not sure. Anyway, so let's just do like a quick recap. First of all, are all of you caught up to chapter 90? Okay. That's like the most important thing. Because if you're not, well, I mean, you're still here, so it's whatever. But if you're not, you need to get caught up, because this whole time mirror situation, yes, Stacy, this whole time mirror situation. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's, it was crazy. And I'm so glad. I don't think that's the right word. Anna's caught up to, woo, tried to catch up to the last video. Okay, I'm glad you guys are caught up. Yes. This time mirror situation has been like, whoa, as far as Morsi being able to finally see everything that Gumang went through and everything that he felt. Jesus, some suspicions seem to come to life. Yes, so many suspicions. But it's just, I'm glad that he got to see things from Gumang's experience, because, this whole time, Morsi has been more so like, yes, I can understand why he, turned traitor, but why the Liao Kingdom? And then he's also just been like, focusing more on himself, I feel like, and his hurt, his pain, and his hatred slash love and desire. And so finally, with him going into the time mirror, he's been given some perspective, and it's not to erase his pain and suffering, but it's to be like, oh, no, Gumang was pushed to the brink. Okay, he was pushed to insanity. So it's one of those things where it's still like, man, why the Liao Kingdom? But at the same time, when someone is grieving and when they feel absolutely helpless, when you have so many people talking down about you, talking down to you, and you've already experienced this your entire life, everyone comes to a breaking point. So it's like, even if Gumang specifically was like, yeah, I'm going to specifically go to the Liao Kingdom for revenge. And, Moshi's like, what? Was my love not enough to stop you? No, no, it was not. Because, like, grief is grief. Pain and suffering is pain and suffering. And when it gets to a certain point, there is nothing you can do. No amount of love and adoration and affection is going to fix that. The person just has to go through what they go through. So anyway, we are back, and they have been thrown up out of the time mirror. And he already said from when he looked that, nope, this isn't Wolfgaga anymore. This is Chonghua's Beast of the Altar, the former General Gu Shixiong. It's the last sentence in the previous chapter. So we're going to go ahead and get started now. And I wish you all the best. I wish myself the best. Let's do this, shall we? So, and even though I have this bright light shining, I still want to use my book light. Okay. So chapter 91 is entitled Memories Recovered. It's so scary. Okay. How was it possible? The two souls that governed memory and mind had unmistakably been stripped from Gumang. By all accounts, the time mirror only allowed someone to return to an image of the past. It couldn't change about the real word. I'm sorry, it couldn't change anything about the real world. So how had Gumang regained his memories after his trip through the mirror? But Morsi had no time to devote further thought to this. There was a sharp cry from the upper reaches of the tower, and a bat monster came diving straight for Gumang. With the flap of its wings, a storm of fire glow arrows shot toward the ground. Fire glow arrows. I can't wait till I move. Watch out, Jiang Yeshe shouted. Morsi wanted to shield Gumang, but the arrows flew too swiftly. There wasn't time to react or evade. As the arrows were practically upon him, a paper talisman flashed, expanding into a barrier that crackled with lightning. With a boom, the fire glow arrows crashed uselessly into the outside of the barrier. The one who tossed out the talisman was none other than Gumang. Even if Gumang had a million things on his mind, General Gu was General Gu. He leapt forward, his movements sharp as a blade unsheathed on a winter's night, gleaming with cold frost. Moments later, rustling came from behind, a tide of rat monsters scurrying toward them. Okay. Jiang Yeshe was instantly overwhelmed by this two-pronged attack. Gumang had no time to comb through his mess of memories, nor think too deeply about his circumstances. He wouldn't be able to jump into battle after such a mental shock, but Gumang was exceptional. He was a general who could direct 10,000 soldiers with a clear head after 3 days without sleep. Okay. He seemed to have been born with an innate readiness and capability for the battlefield. Blue Eyes scanned their surroundings, swift and decisive, ignoring all distractions as he surveyed their situation. First was the time mirror, which had already sunk back into the blood pool. Second was the Shangal, who had been sealed by a tremendously complicated talisman. It had fallen into deep sleep and been discarded in a corner. Beyond this, there was a golden demon summoning token stuck in the ground, which the Shangao had apparently managed to toss out before it succumbed. Innumerable demons were now pouring forth in answer to its summons. As for their injuries, Morsi was in a bad state, and Jiang Yeshui wasn't much better. He'd suffered several wounds, leaving his lotus pale robes soaked in blood. As for Muzhong Chuyi, Gumang frowned. What about Muzhong Chuyi? Where is he? Chuyi's. Jiang Yeshui coughed. He went to the top of the tower to rescue Chen Qing. Which was to say that they couldn't count on Muzhong Chuyi's support for the time being. Gumang swiftly weighed their strength against the enemies. As the tide of rats surged toward them, he stood and faced the roiling crowd of demon beasts with a shout. Fengbo! A beam of gold and silver light flashed in his palm and coalesced into the shape of a holy weapon suona. In the darkness, the white ribbon tied to its end glowed like a Milky Way. Come! Oh, so he's using his Suona, which it originally said like he was never to use it again. So we see that he is. That's pretty exciting. And then okay, Muzhong Chuyi, you just up and go, leaving them all to themselves, essentially leaving Gumang as the only protector, since Moshi's on his deathbed, and Jiang Yoshui is just like, I can't do anything else. So let's see how Gumang saves the day, right? Okay. Moshi's handsome face was completely drained of color as he watched Gumang's silhouette from behind. A distant, muffled cry issued from Gumang's former holy weapon, and it exploded in a dazzling halo. But in the next moment, that blazing light of the summons fractured. Before it could fully materialize, the holy weapon Fengbo became motes of scattered light drifting down around them. Gumang sighed. It had been a risky attempt, but there were too many beasts. A wide-range weapon was their best bet, but the only such weapon he had was Fengbo. He wasn't surprised that the summons had failed. Okay. His spiritual core had been shattered long ago. After regaining his memories in the time mirror, he could recall the incantation to summon Fengbo, but holy weapons were linked to the core and resided in the soul. Without a strong spiritual core and soul, he'd never be able to summon Fengbo for real. The tide of demon rats drew nearer. Gumang's eyes darkened. In the end, what he shouted was, Yongyue, come! Before the sparkling remains of Fengbo fully faded, an intense burst of black magic qi swarmed from his palms and coalesced into a wicked black dagger. Uh-oh. It was the demonic weapon the Liao Kingdom had forged for him upon his defection. The demonic weapon that nearly murdered Mo Xi at the Battle of Dongting Lake. The dagger, Yong Ye. Okay. Well, at least he tried to use something else first. Now he has to bring out this trauma-inducing weapon. Gumang flicked his slender fingers, spinning the dagger nimbly in his palm. He shot forward like an arrow loosed, his movements swift and vicious as he slaughtered his way through that tide of demonic beasts. This demonic weapon was imbued with soul-sucking power. As long as its formation was activated, it would attract the bats like fresh blood, then absorb all of these demons into itself. In moments, the rat beasts had him completely surrounded. A dense shroud of demonic energy enveloped him. His silhouette disappeared into it. All one could see within the horde was the intermittent fiery flash of magic as beast corpses and black blood spewed forth. Unlike Morsi, Jiang Yeshui only now recognized the change in Gumang. Face pale, he turned to Morsi. Has Gumang somehow recovered? Morsi didn't answer. His reddened phoenix eyes fixed upon the center of that mass of black qi, but his expression told Jiang Yeshui everything he needed to know. When the Shangao said it would flash back Gumang's memory, did it mean repair? He asked, stunned. The time mirror, could it have patched his memories even when he's missing two souls? Moshi wanted to reply, but when he opened his mouth, only black blood spilled out. Shihajun, Jiang Yeshe gasped. Moshi's injuries were much worse than Gumang's. Gumang had entered the mirror directly. Although it had affected him, the time mirror was, after all, an ancient godly artifact, not some monstrous relic. One who entered and left it as designed shouldn't suffer serious harm. But it was different for Morsi. He had been sucked into the mirror while stubbornly trying to protect Gumang. He was essentially an uninvited guest, a trespasser. Hence, even though he hadn't exerted himself much inside the time mirror, the trip had exacted a great cost on his spiritual energy. When he emerged, his body was mortally weakened. Okay, so at least now we have an understanding as to like why Morsi is on the brink of death. So, okay, good to know. But as Morsi watched Gumang fight hand to hand with demons, watched him wield the demonic weapon Yong Ye encircled in black mist, he suppressed his discomfort. Swallowing the bloody tang in his mouth, he stretched out his hand. Twintian, come. The tall scepter Twintian appeared at his summons, glowing a pristine white. As Gumang slashed through the horde with his Liao Kingdom blade, Moshi closed his eyes, enduring the dual exhaustion of heart and body. He lifted the scepter and pointed it into the air. Wind and waves swirled, and the sound of oceanic tides surrounded them. Swallowing Leviathan. A beam of silver light rushed out, and a colossal spirit well burst into being in midair. Its song seemed to resound throughout the ages as a wild gale whirled to life, its irresistible pull drawing all the attacking beasts into the air. With an explosive toss of its tail, the whale soared toward the tower's peak. Those monsters were swept along in its wake, only for the giant whale Twintian to beat its tail in another vicious stroke. Black blood filled the sky, plummeting toward the earth in a torrential downpour. Every one of the beasts had disintegrated. That's some power. Amid the bloody storm, Gumang whirled in astonishment, his clear blue eyes wide as he looked behind him. Moshi. Moshi's hand around the scepter was shaking. He hadn't created a barrier, and those drops of still warm blood fell upon his shoulders and hair, running past his pitch black eyes to stream down his pale cheeks like gory tears. He stood in this scarlet downpour, exhausted and helpless, and slowly closed his eyes. The Moor clan bloodline ran with ferocious power, and this holy weapon, Twintian, was the most terrifying of his birthrights. It was impossible to moderate. If the killing move was made, its wide swath left no survivors. Morsi had sworn never to use it, regardless of how dire the situation their army found themselves in. Oh? He'd always kept himself under tight control, refusing to let himself summon Twintian to say the words, swallowing Leviathan. Not only would this move make him look monstrous in the eyes of onlookers, but more importantly, Morsi didn't wish to exterminate his opponents. He'd hated the battlefield. He enlisted in order to protect, not to conquer, at least and least of all for revenge. Whether his opponents were humans or beasts, good or evil, Morsi's instinct was to spare them whenever possible, to give them a chance to retreat. This power that could destroy thousands of living souls in an instant was one that he possessed, but never let himself use. But now, to put an end to the sight of Gumang killing with the Liao Kingdom's demonic weapon, to put an end to the strife as quickly as possible, on the verge of utter collapse, he unleashed this forbidden, fatal blow. Moshi, Jiang Yeshe murmured. Moshi didn't seem to have heard him. He was still haloed in Twintian's fury, its power instantly piercing the barrier Jiang Yeshe had tried to erect over him. He stood silent, alone in the pouring blood rain. The dagger in Gumang's hand retracted, becoming a cloud of black mist, and disappeared into his body. He walked over to Moshi. Moshi stood fixed in place like a broken statue. His face was pallid, his expression drained, eyes empty. He seemed submerged in the falling blood. Guman came to stop before him, looking up at Moshi's figure, drenched to the skin. This proud man seemed to have been reduced to an abandoned dog, so deeply lost and injured that he didn't know where to go. Really quickly, I'll show you guys the photo. Hold on. Oopsie. Oops. So, look at the whale. Okay, the whale looks much smaller than I thought it would, considering all of the slaughtering that it just did. But, or maybe it just seems small because it's like high up and far away, like a plane. I don't know. But anyway, this is the picture. So let's keep going. Okay. But Gumang's thoughts were also a mess. Although his returned memories granted him clarity, they also brought him a terrible unease and disorientation. His body had gone back in time within the mirror and recovered the memories from before he defected. Once out of the mirror, those memories hadn't dissipated. Instead, they connected in his mind to the events after he'd returned to the city as a prisoner of war. To him, it felt as if he'd left Chonghua bearing Lu Jianxing's head on his back in one instant and had awoken in the next to find himself a traitor in the prison wagon of his own motherland. Gumang retained nothing of what had happened in between, nothing that happened in the 5 years he defected. Lacking his crucial information, Gumang regarded many things with suspicion and confusion. He felt profoundly lost and was all the more wary as a consequence. Okay, really quickly, I'm just gonna. I brought 2 pens, not one highlighter. Okay, well, I guess I'm underlining this. So this is an important thing right here that we see now. So Gumang has not retained all of his memories. He doesn't know what he did in the 5 years that he defected, which is rather odd, but okay. Let's mark this. Also, still really sucky though, because like I want to know what he did in the years that he defected. But I guess we still just can't find out. So it is what it is. Anyway, let's return to the reading. And I am going to blow up this screen all the way. Okay, there we are. So he felt profoundly lost and was all the more wary as a consequence. Gumang deliberated for some time before he said to Morsi, "My thanks to Shihajun for the assistance." Only Morsi's dark eyes shifted at the sound of Gumang's voice, his vacant eyes landing on his figure. After a beat of silence, he managed one word. You. His throat tasted bitter, and the next words he spoke were bitter too. Remember everything now? Gumang was silent for a moment. Not everything, but most of it. Morsi made no reply. My mind is clear at last. I'm a functioning person now. Then what happened in the time mirror? You still... Gumang said. I remember it all. Morsi fell silent, eyes fluttering closed as he swallowed. He seemed to want to maintain a nonchalant, serene expression, but his mouth wobbled dangerously. He closed his eyes, his throat tight and acrid. I'm glad. His heart was in chaos, his body breaking down. He was nearly as weak as when he'd collapsed in a pool of blood at Dongting Lake, and just as physically and mentally worn. He didn't know how to approach Gumang, so he muttered hoarsely once more. I'm glad. After a pause, he continued. Are you leaving? You wouldn't want to stay in Chonghua as a prisoner. Up till now, you've stayed because you didn't remember. But now you do, said Moshi. Are you going to leave? Gumag was silent for a beat. He reached up to yank his collar open, exposing a black hoop around his pale neck. No one spoke. Slave collar, the one you gave me. Gumag watched Morsi as he spoke. I'm your slave. If you don't let me go, I'll never be able to leave. The bland phrasing seemed to deal Morsi a piercing blow. He swayed, not just because he had learned many new secrets inside the mirror and felt a complex mixture of emotions toward Gumang, but because of the expression Gumang wore as he said it. He'd seen Gumang in many moods, grinning, compassionate, earnest, bewildered, sorrowful, dazed. If Gumang had cried, laughed, or raged at this moment, it would have been a relief. At least then, Moshi could believe Gumang was still a living person, someone he could chase down, someone real and tangible. What he feared most was Gumang's apathy. Gumang had only worn such a light and emotionless expression on the handful of occasions they'd met after his defection. Seeing it swept Moshi without warning into those darkest bygone days. Gumang, standing on the deck, wielding a dagger, the blood-stained ribbon around his head fluttering, telling Morsi that nothing could be changed. Morsi tried to speak, but the old scar on his chest flared with pain as if newly gouged by a knife. Or perhaps it was the spasming of the organ beneath as it slowly tore itself apart. His vision flashed dark. He seemed to see a vague hint of sorrow betrayed in Gumang's blue eyes. He wanted to get a better look, to see if that sorrow was real or if his obsession had simply imagined it. He took a step forward, but his legs felt full of lead. He crumpled. The violent convulsions in his chest brought up another mouthful of blood. Surprised, Gumang instinctively reached out to catch him, the same way he had when Moshi was young and still called him Gumang Shuxiong. Jiang Yoshe's voice rose anxiously from nearby. He's at his limit. Put him down. I have spirit concentrating powder. Give him a dose, quick. Moshi didn't care. He felt very light, as if his soul might struggle free of his body and fly away at any moment. Strangely, the feeling of near death was one of release. Perhaps he should have died that year on that ship in Dongting Lake. But don't say that. If he had, he wouldn't have lived through so many years of torment. He wasn't a person forged of steel and iron, constrained by his circumstances for so long. He'd slowly been driven insane. Harming Chonghua, harming Gumang, hurt him too. Every time he said something to wound Gumang, it hurt him too. Every time he told himself to hate Gumang, to not be selfish. Every time he reminded himself of what Gumang had done and what Gumang had suffered. Every time he tried to strip away the past, he felt like he was being flayed and torn open. It hurt him too. But he had to live. Without him, the Northern Frontier Army would have ended up disbanded and destroyed. He had to use that body of his, which had already lost a decade of life, to bear the weight of the shadow his old friend left behind. Without him, Gumang would have to return to Luome Pavilion. He had to use that manor of his, which would never be filled with merry reunion, to shelter the broken ruins a hero had left behind. Jiang Yoshe's voice seemed to grow more and more distant. Moshi, wake up. Moshi. He was so tired. He studied Gumang's blue eyes. He wanted to reach out, but he couldn't even move his fingertips. How nice, he whispered. How nice it would be if your eyes were black. Oh, oh man. 1 second. I feel that though. It's like blue eyes are pretty and all, but you're missing what you're used to, what you're familiar with, the eyes that you so love. So, oh man, how nice it would be indeed, Moshi. Let's keep reading. And now we're moving into a thought. If they were still black, I could lie to myself and pretend nothing's happened, that it was all just a ridiculous nightmare I had while we were stationed at the frontier. I could lie to myself and say, once I wake up, you'll be that brilliant, smiling youth with a heart full of joy, and I can stay by your side and listen to your jokes. We would still be in the barracks, our ranks not so high and our pay so very low. All the people you loved, your comrades, your brothers, your childhood friends, none of them had left you yet. I could hold your hand with a heart full of sincerity, gaze at your face with nothing but love, see how every inch of you seemed to be wreathed in sunshine. Morsi's eyes fluttered shut. Kumang, if your eyes were still black, how nice that would be. Back then, our biggest worry was whether Lujan Singh would lift the tent flap and come bursting in. Back then, I could still look toward our future with boundless imagination and hope. How nice. Or perhaps, Morsi thought, not without sorrow, if he had truly died at the Battle of Dongting Lake, that would be nice too. For someone as strong and unyielding as he to develop such a wish, it could only be that he'd suffered too many blows. Before he completely lost consciousness, the last thing Morsi heard was the humming sound of a sword in motion. A voice as elegant and as cold as jade spoke from afar. I just went to the top of the tower to rescue one person. What are you all doing? Standing around in this river of blood. Okay. So that is all of chapter 91. Does anyone have any thoughts on what we've read thus far? Taking, I guess, a little quick break to discuss just that chapter alone. So I know for me, I definitely understand Morsi's perspective, even though it hurts to hear, that he's thinking it would have been, hi Freya, that it would have been nice if he just died on at Dongting Lake. But it's like, after you've experienced enough pain and torment and everything, sometimes you just want to die, and that's a very human emotion that I'm glad Meat Bun put in here, because to me, I mean, not to me, but just in general, there is a difference between someone wanting to die / wishing they were dead versus being suicidal. Like, being suicidal is, yes, wishing to die, wishing you were dead, but also wanting to be the one to execute that plan. Whereas sometimes you just get so overwhelmed with a certain emotion that you just wish you didn't exist anymore. And not that you're going to act on it, but it's just kind of like, you're tired, you're exhausted. And so as much as it hurts to see Morsi like this, I'm glad that Meat Bun is she's just so in tune with like the human heart in regards to suffering and pain and feelings of hatred and love. And that's one thing that I really, really like about reading her stories. So I'm glad we got a glimpse into that. And yeah, it looks like no one has any thoughts on that chapter. So I guess we'll just go ahead and keep reading. Oh no, I'm sorry, I wasn't patient. I feel like this happens every time. So Stacy says, I am hurting so much for Morsi right now, but it's interesting that he is almost getting a second chance with the Gumag of the past, since he only has the memories up until his departure. Yeah. I mean, I personally do think it's a second chance as well. Obviously, it's going to be complicated, but even him saying, like, after he was like, so you remember everything? And Gumang, was like, mostly. He said, I'm glad. And I know that a part of him is truly relieved, even though he's wishing he was dead, that he's very relieved, because that's all that's all he ever wanted, was to have not an empty shell, not Wolf Guga, even though we love Wolf Guga, but he wanted his Gushishong, General Gu, the person that he made so many memories with, like, even even though sometimes I feel like I hate my biological mother, I feel like I would be devastated if she just like forgot who I was. Even though we don't even talk. But if suddenly I was chatting with my younger sister and she was like, "Yeah, our mother lost her memories and she doesn't know who you are." It just make everything worse. It's like, you don't remember me? You don't remember the pain and suffering you put me through and the good times? Like, I'd be so pissed. So I got it. Anne says, I feel that Morsi just can't exactly cope with what he found out about the past. Yeah. I mean, he's not even been given the chance to process it yet because they're still in the heat of battle with these bats and rat monsters and all of these weird creatures. Like, what's with these weird creatures? But yeah, he can't even absorb the information. And that's how it is sometimes when we experience traumatic events. Life keeps going, or there are things that are happening and you can't even take the time to like absorb it. And that can have a really negative effect. So she also said doesn't know how to feel about all of it. Yeah. Hopefully he'll get a chance soon to like marinate on it. Yeah. So let's go ahead and move into chapter 92. Really quickly, I'm going to plug in this so that the light never dims. Ah, see, you got just a tiny bit brighter for me. Yes. Okay. Okay. So we have chapter 92. Scoundrel Shuxiong comes online. It's not a chapter name. We're coming online. Scoundrel Shuxiong. Well, I guess General Gu is back. He's back online. No more downloading, no more buffering. He's here. A drop of water dripped from a crack in the stone cave and landed on the tip of Moshi's nose. Moshi's lashes quivered as he slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was unfocused. He couldn't tell if he was in the past or the present. The mess within Bat Tower swayed before his eyes, interspersed with glimpses of Gumang's meager silhouette walking into the dusky distance. His heart was still beating, muffled by his flesh, after having nearly faltered, pushed to the limits of what it could bear. Morsi took a moment to breathe. Once his vision had cleared somewhat, he stretched his stiff neck and looked around. He was lying inside a shallow cave, the starry sky visible beyond its mouth. A fire cracked merrily, and 3 people sat by the fire pit. Gumang, Jiang Yexue, and Mu Rongchuyi. Yue Chengqing lay not far off with Jiang Yexue's coat draped over him. Mosi's head ached atrociously. He had to close his eyes. The memories from before he lost consciousness sparked like flint in his head. All the past events within the time mirror. Gumang slowly walking toward the horizon with Lu Jianxing's head on his back. The old beggar and his mournful folk song. I, too, once rode a splendid horse. My flag bid thousands on their course. One cry dispersed the demon crowd. Godlike, before my feet all bowed. Today none mark my glories past. Men once called friends all turned their backs. All the coldness on Gumang's face when he finally came out of the mirror, as he stood in the storm of blood. Moshi sat bolt upright. The movement alerted the group chatting around the fire. Gumang was first to notice. He turned and met Moshi's eyes. They looked at each other in silence. The first thing Gumang said wasn't directed at Moshi. He stared at Moshi for a moment and then turned to Jiang Yexue and Mu Rongchuyi. He's awake. Like they couldn't tell. The remaining 2 looked over. Jiang Yexue wheeled his wooden chair to Moshi's side. Shihejun, how do you feel? Is anything bothering you? Moshi didn't respond. Heart pounding, his eyes never strayed from Gumang where he sat by the fire. He was still stunned and bewildered by Gumang suddenly regaining his memories. He even thought it might be a dream, but when he closed his eyes and opened them again, he was still in the cave with these people. It was real. The time mirror had shocked Gumang's brain when it brought him back to the past and somehow repaired his mind. Moshi's dry lips parted, his voice shockingly rough. You. Gumang glanced at him, but his blue eyes quickly turned aside, indifferent. The expression he wore was nearly identical to that of the youth from 8 years ago, only that there seemed to be a thin layer of frost over it. Jiang Yeshui saw that Gumang hadn't responded and was afraid Moshi would feel awkward. Gumang's fine. Also, while you were unconscious, he told us about recovering his memories, so you don't need to worry. Freya says Gumang didn't even talk to Moshi when he came from the mirror. So actually, Freya, he did talk to him, like when they first came out, but eventually some things happened. I think you came in late, so you need to read the first chapter 91. But they did speak. It was really just like, you got your memories? Mostly. Okay, I'm glad. This is pretty much all it was, basically. But then Moisi went unconscious, basically. So now that he's woken up again, Gumang's not talking to him, which is still mean. Gumang, why are you being a big meanie? So let's see if maybe we'll figure out why he's being a big meanie. Mosi stared past Yang Yeshui to the silent Gumang. He lay sprawled casually, an elbow propped on his knee. His lapels were even somewhat loosened, just like the ruggish soldier he'd been. Again and again, Mosi had been shocked upon entering the mirror, but this final blow was beyond anything he could imagine. When Mosi realized Gumang had recovered his memories, he felt a flash of pathetic, short-lived ecstasy, thinking that they finally shared the same past. But the joy only lasted an instant. As he looked at Gumang now, the fervor in his heart slowly cooled. That brief flutter was crushed by unfamiliarity, anxiety, helplessness, and confusion. In that moment, he came to several realizations, but all were numbed by the torturous mental beating he'd received. Okay, cool. That's fine. Still, welcome. Really quickly, Anne says, I think Gumang is also in the process of processing the info he got about the past, though I might be extremely wrong. Oh, he's most definitely still processing. He has to be. And then, oh, you didn't have to correct yourself. I knew exactly what you meant. See, I read it correctly. But yeah, Freya, I'm glad to have you here for a while. I know you have to leave, but it's always nice to see you guys when you come in. So whether you're like engaging or just listening, you pop in late, you pop in on time, it doesn't matter. I'm always glad to see you guys. So let's get back to it. And I lost my place from talking too much. Here we are. Got it. So this torturous mental beating he received by not receiving any talkings from Gumang. After a long, dull pause, he finally settled on this. Gumang had regained his memories, but he acted much less like the Gushushong he remembered. On the contrary, he was incredibly cold and removed. He had been first to notice Moshi was awake, but rather than get up, he was content to let Muzhong Chuyi and Jiang Yeshui deal with it. He'd even turned away to take a sip of hot tea. Moshi examined Gumang's face. The heaviness in his heart deepened. At the sight of him staring silently at Gumang, Jiang Yeshui asked with concern, Shihajun, are you okay? Moshi paused for a moment, looking away from Gumang and doing his best to sound calm. I am. And because he didn't want Jiang Yeshui to pick up on anything else, he changed the topic. Where are we? Still on Bat Island, Jiang Yeshui answered. It's become a bit of a sticky situation. Wu Yan sealed off the entire island, and we sustained too many injuries, so we can't leave just yet. Who? The island's Bat Queen. Her name's Wu Yan. Yan as in swallow. Isn't she a bat? Moshi said wearily. Why does she call herself a bird? Okay. Yes, it's an odd name for sure, Jiang Yeshe said. When we entered the tower, Wu Yan was at a critical point in her secluded cultivation within the underground palace, so she didn't emerge even when with all the ruckus we made. After you destroyed her tribesmen in the tower, Chu Yi Jiang Yeshe paused, feeling uncomfortable, and corrected himself. Xiaoju rescued Chengqing from her prison. When you were passed out, she finished her qi circulation and broke seclusion to come after us. Fortunately, we had Gumang. As he spoke, Jiang Yeshe glanced at Gumang. He was being perfectly polite to the others and grinned at Jiang Yeshe as if he'd never defected. Jiang Yeshe didn't know how to respond. He looked away. Gumang stepped in to handle it, which is how we managed to escape and find this cave. But Wu Yan is crazed with fury. At this point, she's covered all of Bat Island with alarm spells. A moment's carelessness and she'll find us. I've set up a concealment talisman here. We'll be fine for a while, so you don't need to worry just yet. Moisi massaged his pulsing temples. He turned to look at Yue Chengqing, who was curled up within Jiang Yeshe's greatcoat, fast asleep. In the dozen odd days since they'd last crossed paths, Yue Chengqing had lost a great deal of weight. His once round cheeks had become sunken, the lines of his face pathetic and helpless. How is he? Moshi asked. Jiang Yeshe took a breath to respond. Gumang cut in. Why not come over here to talk? Come warm up by the fire and have something to eat. Moshi's scarred and calloused heart beat faster at these vaguely gentle words. He looked up at Gumang. Just as he was about to say a word of thanks, Gumang lazily continued. Or is Shihajun so delicate that he can't walk? Do I need to come give you a piggyback ride? Why we being this mean? Why are we being this mean? Okay. Gumang. Gaga. Moshi's words lodged in his throat, choking the breath from him. He had thought they could at least mend their relationship somewhat after coming out of the time mirror. He wanted to make amends, at least, to properly apologize for his absence back then and try to ask Gumang for the truth one more time. So at least, okay, it's nice to know that he wants to make amends. I mean, we knew that already anyway, obviously. But to see it so plainly written in here, okay, just marking that. He said they feel so awkward with each other. Yes. But you know what? I'm not even sure if it's awkwardness, more so like Gumang's just he's being mean. He's being so mean and just like cold. Oh my gosh. And Morsi, meanwhile, is like coming to after his unconsciousness. Anyway, let's see. But Gumang didn't seem to share these sentiments. The hostility in his words was no different than when he was the Liao Kingdom's loyal subject. He sounded absolutely unrepentant. Gumang, Morsi said softly. Gumang scoffed. You do need me to carry you? Morsi's eyes dulled, like a candle extinguished after guttering too long. Gumang had put out the last glimmer of light in his eyes. Gumang's attitude seemed to mock him. Oh, Morsi, what's the point? The two of us are already like this. Whatever the truth is, whatever happened in the past, let's just be enemies. What other choice do we have? Morsi clenched his jaw and rose. Despite his injuries, he managed to make it to the fire pit unassisted. He cast Gumang a meaningful glance as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he turned away. He silently sat next to Muzhong Chuyi, as far as possible from Gumang. Gumang being Gumang. A cold one. Naturally, Gumang noticed. He smiled without saying a word and focused instead on turning the meat over the fire. An uncomfortable silence descended. After a moment, Morsi turned to ask Muzhong Chuyi, how's your Changqing? Muzhong Chuyi's face was wan. Eyes downcast, he simply said, I've taken care of his injuries, so there's no threat to his life. However, he's been poisoned by the Bat Queen's goo worms, and I don't have an antidote. So now we have goo worms. All right. First, there are goo insects. Now there are goo worms. I've never heard of goo worms before. Let's see. Morsi stared. The Shangao had said Yue Chunqing was locked in the cell and covered in blood-sucking vines. It hadn't mentioned anything about goo worm. That's what I'm saying. What kind of poison is this goo worm? I've never seen it before. There's no record of it in any cultivation realm texts. I interrogated 2 of the bat demons guarding his cell, but they didn't know much either. The only thing they said, Muzhong Chuyi paused, frowning with disgust. He coughed quietly. Jiang Yeshui came over and offered him a cup of tea. Xiaoju, have some. Muzhong Chuyi gave him a withering look. He shoved the tea aside, spilling it all over Jiang Yeshui's sleeves. Jiang Yeshui fell silent. Everybody just being mean. Okay. After waiting for his breathing to steady, Muzhong Chuyi continued. The only thing they said was that this goo worm could take a body drained of blood and create an undead puppet in the form of an individual of the prisoner's choosing. It could reconstruct everything about that person, from their appearance to their voice, memories, and feelings. With nothing better to do, Gumang had summoned his demonic dagger to play with. He poked it into the fire like a pair of tongs, stoking the merrily burning flames. At Muzhong Chuyi's words, he asked, so it kills someone and then uses their corpse to construct... You're going to try that again. So it kills someone and then uses their corpse to construct someone new? Precisely. What is the demoness after? Gumang nimbly spun the blade in his slender fingers. What does she want to reconstruct using Yue Chunqing's body? Who does she want to construct? I don't know, Muzhong Chuyi responded wearily. Those 2 back guards were loyal to the end. When I pressed them, they shattered their own cores and killed themselves. After I recover, I'll trap a suitable monster here on the island and ask some questions. He coughed again. If we want to cure Yue Chunqing of this poison, the more we know, the better. All right then, Gumang said decisively. How about this? I have a slave collar around my neck, so I can't run away no matter what. You guys haven't yet recovered. Why don't I grab a likely demon for your interrogation? Muzhong Chuyi looked at him. How kind. Why? Gumang smiled at Muzhong Chuyi. I'm just looking out for myself. In exchange for helping save him, I would ask you, sirs, to do a kind deed. Do me a solid. Don't tell anyone I've regained my memories once we return to the capital. No one had expected this, and all 3 of them fell silent. Why are you looking at me like that? Gumang gave the dagger one last twirl. With a flourish, the blade became a wisp of spiritual energy that sank back into his palm. Is my request so strange? Gumang, Jiang Yeshui said, this is the crime of lying to one's emperor. Gumang smiled. He was antagonistic and cold to Morsi, but there was friendliness in his expression when he spoke to the others. Sorry about that. I know I'll be troubling you all, but I don't have much choice. If the rest of Chonghua knows I've recovered, I'll probably be sent back to Luomei Pavilion, and with those grudges, they'll come swarming. I definitely said that wrong. And those grudges will come swarming. And His Imperial Majesty, too. He'll take me for black magic experiments and interrogate me about the Liao Kingdom's secrets. I mean, he might do that, but he won't get anything because apparently Gumang remembers everything except for the 5 years that he had defected. So I'm going to look at you guys' comments. Oh my gosh. I should really start eating before these live sessions, but I don't eat in the morning, to be honest. But every time I start these lives, my stomach be like, hey, I'm hungry. I can only hope the water helps. So, Kylie says, I can't. It's funny, but sad all at the same time, right? But it also makes me wonder if it's an act while in front of the others or actually genuine behavior. I don't know what to expect from Meat Bun. We don't. Meat Bun just be meat bunning, you know? And when you bite into a meat bun, you don't know what the meat is going to taste like. You know what the bun is going to taste like because they all taste the same. I've made mantou before. It's so good. But anyway, it tastes the same pretty much every time. But on the inside, you don't know what you're going to get. So anyway, Anne says, same feelings here. I don't know what to expect from meat bun anymore. I can only hope that Gumang is just acting in front of the others. But then the question is like, okay, why though? If it is an act, why is he acting cold to Moshi in front of the others? Let's come up with some theories. Okay. No, I can't come up with anything because Jiang Yeshe and the three of them used to be comrades together before, so there's no reason to act in front of him. As far as Mu Zhong Chuyi is concerned, Mu Zhong Chuyi doesn't give a rat's ass about anyone or anything. The ignorant immortal, and Yue Chongqing gets knocked out. So no, I don't know why. Anyway, I'm gonna assume for now it's not an act, and he's just being mean and salty and stuff because, at the very least, because he just recovered his memories and it's still fresh. Let's go with that. Yeah. Okay. Let's continue. Right. Okay. Mu Zhongchuyi's expression was cold as ice and snow as he asked, do you not deserve such treatment? I'm not saying I don't, Gumang said shamelessly. But can't I fear that fate, at least? Who'd want to spend their days waiting to get offed or get fucked? Mu Zhongchuyi paled at such vulgarity. You... Okay. Jiang Yeshe tried to compromise. If you don't want to return to Luome Pavilion, we'll help keep you safe, but we can't hide this truth. You should declare Liao Kingdom's secrets to Chonghua. I can't divulge anything, Gumang said. I've forgotten. No one spoke. At the expressions on the faces of those three noble sirs, Gumang added earnestly, sorry, I've really forgotten. Morsi watched Gumang across the fire. That organ in his chest hurt so horribly it seemed to pulse with resentment at its neglect. He closed his eyes, biting out each word. Did you not regain your memories? I didn't say I remembered everything, Gumang said. I'm missing two souls. No matter what I do, I'll never recover completely. So clearly Morsi doesn't remember that very, very brief exchange before, he went under. So really quick theory right here. For him to recover his memories, but not the 5 years he defected in the Liao Kingdom, I'm wondering if he was tempered in some kind of way to which they intentionally made it so that he wouldn't be able to recover those memories, so that no matter what Chonghua did, they wouldn't be able to get any details from him. Just a theory, which completely makes sense. Y'all agree? Kylie says maybe Gumang was having his own feelings about not having memories, then regaining them, and doesn't know how to respond to them. What you just said. Yes. Yeah. So that's my theory on why he's not able to remember what happened in those 5 years with the Liao Kingdom. Then purposely removing memories makes complete sense. Yeah, it's kind of like a little tease. Like, we're going to give you Gumang back with his 2 of his souls lost, as we're declaring peace for a time being, but we're really just recovering. And we're going to make you guys think that you've actually got something, but not really. Not really. Anne says, I kind of suspect that bony guy in the last video reading that he might have something to do with it. The beggar? Wait. Are you talking about the beggar? Or the because he said bony guy. He was bony, right? Or are we thinking about the black cloaked man? What if he has something to do with it? Because we don't know who this black cloaked man is either, because Morsi decided not to unmask him, which I suppose is good, but at the same time, like, oh darn. So oh no, the one with the voice tempered. Okay, yeah. So the black cloaked man. Yeah. Okay, good. So we're on the same page. Cool. It's just that as soon as you said the bony man, I was thinking about the beggar because I don't know why. I guess I don't remember the description of the black cloaked man other than him wearing the the black cloak and having a weird voice, which it was weird doing that guy's voice. But anyway, I probably should have chosen a different one. Nevertheless, okay. Now that we've discussed the theory, let's go ahead and get back to the reading. No, the beggar was super nice. I feel bad for the torment that he ended up going through. Okay. Morsi nailed Gumang with a stare. I'm sorry, I'll go ahead and read what I read before that. I didn't say I remembered everything, Gumang said. I'm missing 2 souls. No matter what I do, I'll never recover completely. Morsi nailed Gumang with a stare. Hatred and heartbreak were clear in his eyes, but he exerted all his will to keep his delicate features composed. And how, exactly, did you lose those 2 souls? The smile on Gumang's face disappeared. After a time, he said lightly, Oh, this is also something I've forgotten. I don't know why that's so funny. Moishi said nothing. Don't look at me like that. I really don't know. Believe me or not, if you don't, you could use the soul recording spell or draught of confession to torture me as you like. If you can get the truth out, I'll admit defeat. Moishi turned away, his grip slowly tightening around his own knee. He didn't reply. Muzhong Chuyi had remained cool and calm. Unswayed by emotion, he considered Gumang's words and returned to the topic at hand. If you're not afraid of harsh treatment upon our return, why not just kill us and escape? Good question, gorgeous. Gumang chuckled with... I can't stop laughing. Okay. Gumang chuckled with a thoughtful hand to his chin. Cold and beautiful men certainly are hard to handle. Shi Hejun is one example, and Muzhong Xianxiang is another. Muzhong Chuyi and Moshi greeted this statement with identical silences. Gumang laughed, but his blue eyes swept across each of them in turn. Let's see. It does seem like I have a reasonable chance of killing you all and escaping. Look, Jiang Xiong is disabled, and he's used up too much of his spiritual energy. Muzhong Xiong doesn't seem to be at his best either. He must have been injured saving his nephew. This Yue clan kiddo isn't even awake, so I could kill him more easily than I would a sparrow. His gaze fell next upon Morsi. It was a fleeting glance, like a dragonfly skimming water, before he looked indifferently away. He crossed his arms and grinned. My God, at this rate, it'd be more absurd if I didn't kill you all and run. So, asked Muzhong Chuyi. With a flick of his fingertip, Gumang summoned the dagger Yongye once more. He lunged forward without warning, but Muzhong Chuyi had been watching the whole time. He summoned a gleaming gold talisman and instantly raised a protective barrier. Gumang looked at the barrier and spread his hands with a smile. You see, it'll end up like this, won't it? If I tried to kill anyone, you guys would retaliate. Even if demonic chi gave me an advantage, my core is still broken, and I might still lose. Plus, I certainly wouldn't make it out unscathed. And when the noise alerts that bat lady, what then? Should I lie here and let her mold me into a clay figurine? I really don't like that. Let me just read this. Let me finish because we're almost done with this chapter. Mu Zhongchuyi stared at Gumang for a moment. The golden light at his fingertips slowly extinguished, and he turned to glance at the unconscious Yue Chengqing. I'll trust you this once. If you help us, I won't speak of your condition once we leave. Gumang smiled. Your words alone won't do. Can you guarantee your cute little nephew's mouth will also stay sealed? Good question. He paused, his fluid gaze finally landing on the silent Moshi. And Shihajuan's mouth? Gumang ran his tongue over his. Gumang's tongue ran. I can't read. Gumang ran his tongue over sharp incisors. I'm gonna assume that's these teeth. Okay. Anyway, his mannerisms retaining their wolfishness. His gaze was dark with secrets as he stared at Morsi's pale lips. His voice was low, syrupy murmur. The most stubborn of all, Mu Zhongxiong. Could you do me a favor and ask him the same question? See if he's willing to cooperate and keep those pretty lips of his shut tight for me. Okay, that's the end of chapter 92. So, it's kind of sucky to hear that the only reason Gumang isn't just attempting to kill them and run away is because he's not certain he'd have like a sure victory. You're leaving?
Yeah.
Okay. I love you.
Love you too. Who that is?
Who is who?
Who on there?
That's me.
Oh, okay.
On the camera.
Okay, good.
Okay. Have fun.
All right. Appreciate it.
Okay, so anyway, it's the fact that that's the only reason that he's not attempting to like kill them and escape is really, really sad. I'm like, come on. Could it just be that like you don't want to kill them? Could it be because Jiang Yeshe is your friend or was once your friend and comrade? Could it be because despite the complications, like you still feel something for Moxi and Yue Chengqing has done nothing to you and Mu Zhongchuyi helped you once? Like, why does it have to be, well, I'm not going to kill you guys because I might not win. And then I could possibly be turned into a figurine for the Bat Lady. Okay. Gumang. Oh my gosh. Let me read these comments. Kylie says, it's the nonchalance of Gumang responses that get me. Bro is just like, it's whatever. I'm like, sir, we can't do this. Okay. We cannot do this. Stacy says he definitely didn't say anything about killing Morsi, though. True. Actually, yeah, he didn't. He didn't. But still, it's just like, guy, come on. Also, the last thing I want to say before moving to this last chapter that we're reading is, sir, can you stop pulling out Yongye, your demonic weapon, and like just playing around with it? You do realize that you're basically wagging the trauma in front of Morsi's face, like, the thing I stabbed you with and you almost died. La-di-da-di-da, put it in the fire. I'm like, sir, stop. Just stop. Oh, man. Gumang. I don't know what to say at this rate about him and his behavior. So we have one more chapter to read. It's going to be chapter 93. And hopefully we can, I don't know, hopefully he'll be better, nicer. We'll see. I doubt it. All right. So I'm just waiting a second just in case any comments come in, and then we'll continue reading. Because I know sometimes I don't be patient enough to let you guys' comments come in. So, okay, it's 10:49. I can wait till 10:50. So Stacy says, yeah, he needs to put that away, but it does sound pretty cool, if I'm honest. It does. It sounds really cool. I'm not gonna lie. All of the weapons that have been introduced, from Tuntian to Yongye to, what was the name of his, Fengbo, his Suona, all of these weapons sound cool. All of the There are so many things in this story, this series that are cool that I would love to rave about, from the weapons to all of the crazy monsters to the inventions from like Jiang Yeshe and Muzhong Chuyi and stuff. Really, really cool. Nice world building. I don't talk a lot about it. I know that I did in like the first volume recap, but it's truly amazing. So you say he definitely wants to maybe torture Morsi. You think so? I think so as well. Even if it's only mentally and emotionally, just like, I mean, maybe he does have some resentment. You know what? Yes. It is also possible that in these memories, Gumon could have some resentment. So, for example, like Morsi said, he wasn't there for Gumong in those hard times before he, went back to war or whatever, with the Northern Frontier Army or whatever. He let Gumong be to his devices when he was wallowing in sorrow. And even in the time mirror, when they went back, he wasn't there for Gumong again in that moment after Lu Jianxing died. So it's possible that, yeah, Gumong could have some resentment toward Morsi. Like, in my darkest hour, where the hell were you? You weren't there when the events really happened, and you weren't there when we went into the time mirror. What were you doing? To me, I would be like, what were you doing while we were in the time mirror? Were you just strolling around lottie-dottying after that one time that we spoke to each other? Where were you after that? So, especially after Lu Jianxing died. So who knows? Maybe he's feeling resentment? I'm just trying to throw anything out there as to why Gumong is being such an asshole or so mean and all of that jazz. Anyway, let's go ahead and read the final chapter, which is kind of short. Chapter 93. Shuxiong won't pamper you today. So it's not going to get better. Thanks for letting us know. So he's not about to be nice to Morsi. Got it. And says he needed support from his best friend / beloved, but didn't get that. Yeah. And that was very upsetting for me because clearly Morsi avoided him in the past, from not wanting to see him like that because he was not what you idolized him as. He wasn't being that person. And he needed you. So anyway, one sip of water before I start. That looks scary. Sorry, I was like, okay. Gumong's arch smile and relentless stare filled Morsi with an awkwardness he hadn't felt in a long time. He bit his lip and turned away. Of course, Muzhong Chuyi wouldn't plead with Morsi and Jiang Yeshe on Gumong's behalf, but since he had shown where he stood on the matter, it seemed worth considering. Gumong casually clasped one shoulder, his back against the stone wall as he spun the dagger in his free hand. How does that sound? Do we have a deal? Helping a criminal conceal important information would amount to the great crime of deceiving one's emperor. However, Gumong's assessment wasn't wrong. They were truly all in the same boat. Pizza, pizza. That's how you say that. Jiang Geshui glanced at Muzhong Chuyi. If Xiaoju is willing to do this, then I won't say anything either. As long as you don't make things difficult for us in the future, I'll help you keep this secret. Gumong smiled as he cupped his hands at Jiang Yeshui. Sensible. Thanks. He then turned to look at Morsi, that slight smile dimming. Shihajun, what about you? Morsi was silent for a beat. I won't hand you over to the emperor. Perfect. Gumong smiled again lazily. Everyone is a gentleman here. A man's word cannot be taken back. I'll help you with this. You'll help me with my secret. And we're even. I think it's also best that they don't let Yue Chunqing know. Just throwing that out there. I meant to say that after we ended the last chapter. Yue Chunqing needs to absolutely, positively stay in the dark about this. Okay. Do you plan to go trap a demon now? Mu Zhongqi asked. Gumang sat down. No rush. I used up too much spiritual energy escaping Wu Yan's clutches. Let Gaga have a bite first. With that, he turned the two skewers hung over the fire. Only then did Morsi notice that there was a plump goose suspended over the fire pit. Morsi was a proud person, but he just witnessed Gumang's past suffering. His heart ached bitterly. He still wanted to make amends, so he quietly asked, Where did you get the goose? Gumang ignored him. Morsi shut his mouth. Jiang Yeshe noticed the awkwardness and warmly replied, It was stored in my walnut ship. He brought out the tiny ship he had used to ferry them to the island. Putting the thumb sized ship on the ground, he tapped it with a fingertip. The vessel immediately grew a dozen times larger, to the size of a wooden basin. Jiang Yeshui called out in a gentle voice, Boatwoman, could you please bring us some more tea and refreshments? Coming! From the inside of the basin sized ship came a crisp and pleasant voice with a soft Wu dialect accent, giggling. There's fresh food and desserts. And we've got Miao Yu tea from Lingshan and Dan Cong tea from Wudong. Which would you like, my lord? Some of each. The tinkling voice laughed. All right, coming right up. The bamboo cabin curtain on the walnut ship swished, and a lifelike clay maiden emerged. On the ship, she was only half the height of a palm, but she transformed into a clay servant the size of a child as soon as she touched the ground. She carried the wooden tray laden with fruit and desserts, as well as two pots of hot tea. So she was this big at one point. Okay. Morsi watched the clay boat maiden cheerfully settle the tray next to the fire pit. Why didn't we see this puppet on the ship? He asked. She's cleverer than the other puppets. I spent a lot of time on her. When we were on the walnut ship, she was busy with the steering, so you didn't see her. The clay boat maiden looked up, revealing willowy brows and slender phoenix eyes. Jiang Yeshue's careful work was evident. She was merely a clay person, but her face was as detailed as a real human's. All her paints and lacquers had been attentively applied, and she moved more smoothly than her clay brethren. The boat maiden performed an obeisance and said in a charming voice, If there's nothing else, I'll wait on the ship. Gu Mang was watching with rapt attention, and he stopped her. Hey, miss, don't be in such a rush to leave. He asked with a smile, Do you have any lychee wood on your ship? The mast is made of lychee wood, but unfortunately, I can't give it to you. You know why I want lychee wood? Gumang asked curiously. The maiden chuckled and pointed to the crackling bonfire. Meat roasted over lychee wood has an extraordinary flavor. Gongzi must have a craving. Astonished, Gumang turned to Jiang Yeshui. How does she know that? Jiang Yeshui lowered his gaze and laughed. When I was refining her, I merged a copy of Recipes in the 9 Provinces into her head. Damn, Gumang clapped. I've been away just a few years, and Jiang Xiong's artificing skills have improved considerably. These constructs are not only lifelike, but also clever. Jiang Yeshui glanced at Mu Zhongqi. I'm still not as good as Xiao Ju. Man, don't downplay your skills. Come on, my guy. I'm just going to mark this part because I'm definitely going to have to say something about this clay woman that he's invented. Okay. Mu Zhongqi pretended to be deaf. He leaned silently against the stone wall with his arms crossed. Despite Mu Zhongqi's attitude, Jiang Yeshui smiled faintly. He allowed the boat maiden to return to the cabin and shrink the boat back to the size of a walnut. After he'd stowed the ship back in his Tiankun pouch, he continued to warmly compliment Mu Zhongqi. My Xiaoju is the greatest grandmaster artificer of all. He can transform a flower into a ship, a raindrop into a tower. Jiang Yeshui spoke with the intent to cajole, but it didn't work on Muzhong Chuyi. He closed his phoenix eyes as if repulsed. Really quickly, can I just say, can we invent Chanko pouches like these in real life? And can we have the ability to make things as small as a walnut and then increase the size when we take them out and tap them with a finger? Because, like, that would be extremely convenient. Like, so convenient. Okay. That's it. Morsi and Gumang both stared. What kind of power, Morsi wondered, did this ignorant immortal have for both his nephews to praise him so? While Yue Chengqing praised him with fiery enthusiasm, gushing about his uncle to anyone he met, Jiang Yeshui wouldn't necessarily mention him unprompted. But oddly, whenever the two of them were compared, Jiang Yeshui would say without hesitation that Muzhong Chuyi was his better, despite being one of the best artificer elders at the academy himself. Jiang Yeshui's self-depreciating praise was different from Yue Chengqing's loud boasting. Muzhong Chuyi's indifference to Yue Chengqing only made Yue Chengqing look foolish. When Jiang Yeshui praised Muzhong Chuyi so sincerely at his own expense and was still ignored, he seemed rather pathetic. I think both of them look pathetic. If you ask me. Anne said that would be great to have the Tianquan pouch. Yes. Part of me feels like this clay woman is a representation for someone Jiang Yeshui knows. And who is this person that he knows? We need more information on Jiang Yeshui. Because I still don't trust him. I know y'all probably like, girl, if you don't let this man alone, but I don't trust him. I'm not gonna, technically speaking, the way I proceed is if you've not given me a reason to distrust you, I'll trust you. You know, of course, having wisdom and all that and discernment. But with Jiang Yeshui, I don't know. I'm distrusting him until he gives me a reason to trust him. I don't know why. Anyway, I'm going to keep reading. Sensing the tense atmosphere, Gumang spoke up. Muzhong Shanxiang is of the older generation. It's natural that Jiangxiong cannot compare. Come, the goose is almost ready. Let's have something to eat. You haven't had my crispy roast goose before, right? Give it a try. Although Gumang was an enemy of Chonghua, Jiang Yeshui couldn't bring himself to hate him, while Muzhong Chuyi had no sense of patriotism to begin with. Besides, they all shared a goal at the moment, so they put aside any petty bickering. The roast goose was ready, dripping grease that hissed when it fell into the flames. Gumang took it off the spit. He took it off of the spit. Wait, what's a spit? Because the only spit I know of is. Hold on. I kind of want to know. If y'all know, just tell me. But I'm about to look it up. I mean, I can assume it's just a stick, or is this like a? Hold on. He took it off the spit. A slender, pointed rod for holding meat over fire. Okay, so it wasn't a typo or anything. Okay, I just wanted to like make sure because it just sounded like it was a typo or something. Spit for roasting, and I just want to look at it too. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah. So I didn't know it was called a spit. But yeah, it's the thing that they use when roasting things over the fire. Oops. Like that. The stick that's going through it. So, okay. Not a typo. The more you know. You say I feel you. I have many trust issues too with some characters. Hexia, and I assume it is over the fire. Yes, Google it because I'm confused. I've heard of it called the fire spit, but never just spit. Yeah, that's why I was like, hold on. something wrong. Mind you, I've never heard of fire spit either, I guess. But I'm like, clearly this is a typo, but now we know that it's not. So yeah, it's spit. Here's a better image. Well, I don't know about better image, but here's a better image. Uh, no, that's too bright. Here's another image. No, they're all too bright. Screw it. Okay. I need a darker image, I suppose, without the white background. There we go. Anyway, let's continue reading now that we know. So Gumang took it off the spit, the fire spit, picked the plumpest part of the goose breast and sliced it thinly, the skin crackling beneath his little knife. The savory fragrance of meat and char assaulted his senses. Crisp golden brown skin clinking into the firm, piping hot meat. Gumang placed each slice on a banana leaf and sprinkled coarse salt over top, carving just enough for 2 servings before passing them to Muzhong Tuyi and Jiang Yeshe. Gumang and Moshi, where's his slice? Okay. As Jiang Yeshe tried a bite, Gumang smiled. How is it? I didn't know you could cook. Gumang laughed out loud. If only we had some lychee wood and stuffed the goose with berries while it roasted, I guarantee the flavor would leave you speechless. When did you learn to make this? Jiang Yeshe asked. I taught myself. I'm a genius. As Gumang spoke, he carved some more goose meat. Doesn't it hit the spot? Why didn't you make this back then? Jiang Yeshe remarked. Moshi, staring into that warm bonfire, murmured. He did. Jiang Yeshe was startled, but still managed to smile warmly. Ah, that's right. You two were close in those days. I remember Gumang really did take good care of you. But it seemed Gumang didn't wish to be associated with Moshi. He hastily waved a hand. It was nothing. I wouldn't call it care. He turned to Moshi with a shallow smile. It's been so long, but you still remember that goose? As I recall, it wasn't my best effort. It tasted like wax. Shihajun, however much you hate me, I'll ask you not to bring up my shortcomings right now. He rubbed his nose, unwittingly leaving a smear of soot. I do have my pride, you know. Across the fire, Morsi watched Gumang's smiling, callous face. There were torrents of words stuck in his throat, but it would be futile even if he could express them. He couldn't figure out how to talk to Gumang. He felt that he might do something extremely reckless at the tiniest impulse. Should he open his mouth and vent his feelings, he'd never be able to take it back. And so he stayed silent, probably for the better. Whether Gumang was purposefully distancing himself from Morsi or whether he genuinely viewed him as an enemy, Morsi chose to endure it without complaint for as long as he could. Gumang spread the crisp and fragrant goose over another bamboo leaf. He retracted the knife and sat back down with his own leaf in hand. I'm hungry. Yo, why does Meat Bun always make me hungry? I mean, it's bad enough her name is Meat Bun, but you just be describing food, and and duck is so good. Anyway, let's continue. Anne said, does that guy feel jealous or what? I would. Let me keep reading. Where did I go? Sorry. Oh, yeah. So he retracted the knife and sat back down with his own leaf in hand. Jiang Yeshui was an observant person. He paused in the middle of his meal as he noticed something was amiss. Gumang had served him and Muzhong Chuyi, but not Moshi. This was already quite awkward. On top of that, Moshi was a pampered scion who never dirtied his hands with such tasks. There was no way he'd know how to carve roast goose. False. The atmosphere grew even more uncomfortable. Just as Jiang Yeshui was about to speak up to smooth things over, Gumang looked up. All right, I forgot about yours, Shihajun. Moshi was silent. He continued. Do you want me to help you cut some? I'm sorry. I can't. I'm so sorry. I just can't with Guma. Okay. But before Morsi could respond, Gumang went back to eating from his banana leaf with a smile. Never mind, he said without a hint of sincerity. Think how much blood I have on my hands. How could the noble and honorable Shihajun be willing to eat anything I've touched? You'd better do it yourself. There's no need, Morsi replied. I'm not hungry. I'm sorry. I need to stop laughing. Stacy says, Gumang being so passive aggressive. Come on, my guy. I cannot keep laughing like this. It's just pathetic. It's just okay. Let me check the time. Okay, we're still good. John, those two need to go to therapy session or two together, right, Kylie? Because look, Stacy says Morsi pouting, LOL. Right. He's like, I'm not hungry. Yes, you are. You know you're hungry. Jiang Yeshe knew Morsi was incredibly stubborn. He couldn't help saying, Shihajun, you've only just recovered. You should really eat something. It's fine. Morsi stood. You guys go ahead. I'll worry about myself. But if he says he's fine, believe him. Gumang pulled Jiang Yeshe back and smiled. Shihajun isn't some 15-year-old brat who's just joined the army anymore. Give him some credit. Jiangxiang, do you want another drumstick? Jiang Yeshe fell silent. When they'd finished the goose and had some tea and refreshments, it was time for Gumang to go. He summoned the demonic weapon Yongye and prepared to set off. You guys should sit in the cave and meditate, recover some spiritual energy. Wait a Shurchun for me. If I haven't found a suitable demon by then, I'll use the old way to tell you. Understood? This old way was via messenger butterfly. When they had been on the battlefield in the past, their scouts had used them to pass intel from the front lines to the comrades. Yes, don't worry, Jiang Yeshe said. Gumang hid the dagger in his sleeve. I'm off then. His silhouette vanished as he leapt swiftly into the darkness. There's no way Morsi's letting him go alone. Morsi stood at the cave mouth. As Gumang had left, they'd brushed shoulders, but neither had looked at each other. Now that Gumang was out of sight, Morsi stared out toward where he had melted into the gloom. Jiang Yeshe came to Morsi's side. What happened to you? Morsi's velvet lashes lowered. He said nothing. You've been acting strange ever since you came out of the time mirror. I asked Gumang about it a bit ago. He said the mirror shocked his brain and repaired most of his memories, but he didn't say much more. I knew I wouldn't get anything else out of him, so I let it go. Jiang Yeshe paused. Now that he's gone, can you tell me what you saw in the mirror? We returned to 8 years ago, Morsi replied. Jiang Yeshue's eyes widened. Right after Gumang defected? No, before, said Morsi. The days before he defected. Seeing the way Morsi's face went ashen, Jiang Yeshue hesitantly asked, in the mirror, did you try to persuade Gumang to change his mind? I tried, but it was of no use. Morsi said wearily. That's not the most important part, though. The most important is, I saw some things we didn't know about before. The hand Jiang Yeshue had laid on the arm of his wheelchair curled slightly. Why are you curling your arm? Why are you curling your hand? I'm sorry. What did you see? He asked with concern. Suspicious. Morsi paused for a moment. I can't say yet. I'm missing a lot of context, and what I know is only the tip of the iceberg. I want to wait until we return to the capital. I need to investigate some events that happened 8 years ago. Jiang Yeshue had opened his mouth to reply when they suddenly heard Yue Chengqing's faint, teary voice from the depths of the cave. He sobbed. Fourth uncle. That's how we end the chapter? With fourth uncle? I can't. Well, we've ended the chapter with Yue Chengqing finally waking up. So Anne says, I swear he's so sus. Right? Because, okay, let's be real. If Meat Bun had not put that in there, wouldn't have had any thoughts about it. But for her to specifically put that he, 1 second, the hand Jiang Yeshe had laid on the arm of his wheelchair curled slightly. Usually when details like that are spoken or shown, even in like C-dramas and stuff, that shows some kind of nervousness, some kind of hiding something, or like, oh God. So now I'm like, no, I'm really looking at you real sus. And I'm glad that Morsi didn't say anything, which I appreciate, because some people, even without all the information, they would just be like, well, this is what I saw. Whereas with him, he's like, until I have it all pieced together, I'm not telling you anything. And I'm going to say, good for you, Morsi, because something's wrong with Jiang Yeshe. I know something's wrong with him. I don't care how sweet and kind he is, how much suffering he is able to endure from Yue Chunqing being mean to him and Mu Rongchuyi ignoring him and the rest of his family just like disowning him. There's something strange about this one. Very suspicious, Kylie. It's very suspicious. So anyway, we have officially ended the reading of these chapters. Yes, yeah, he did well, even if unknowingly. Yeah, absolutely. So we finished the chapters, and it's 11:16. This is from page 299 to 306. Should we read one more chapter? Let me know what y'all think. One more? I have some time. I started this early because I have a feedback session with my watercolor mentorship that starts at 12. But this next chapter is so short. Should we read another? I'm gonna wait for you guys to say yes or no before I just dive on in. I won't be mad. Stacy's like, I mean, if you want to. Oh, yes, I might do another one. Okay, so don't read it if you'll feel rushed later. Well, no, I won't, because it's such a short chapter. Like, even if it takes 2 minutes to read each page, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. It might take 20 minutes at most, you know, if I mess up and have to go reread something, because it's not a full 10 pages. It's 8. I'm going to do it. We're gonna do it. Plus, I know I'm a little later in the feedback session anyway, because I was among the first set of people to submit, which means my stuff is at the bottom. Anyway, so yeah, we're gonna do an extra chapter. Yay! Okay. Chapter 94, 2 nephews. I'm actually concerned about this one. Also, let's take a potty break really quick though, because I do need to pee from all that water I've been drinking. So 1 second. You know, I'm wondering if there's like any way. Oh, I would probably have to share a screen to do something like that. To have some like, I was supposed to look into elevator music for y'all and stuff like that, but I didn't. So anyway, let me go potty really quickly. Let's get to these 2 nephews that I'm highly concerned about. Chapter 94. At Yue Chunqing's cry, Jiang Yeshe whipped around to look toward Mu Zhongchuyi, while Mo Xi turned to Yue Chunqing. Is he having a nightmare? Curled up beneath the greatcoat, Yue Chunqing was still asleep. Oh, he's not awake. Oops. Yue Chunqing was still asleep with only a small wisp of black hair visible. His voice was choked with tears. Fourth uncle, don't be mad, he sobbed. Don't blame me. Don't ignore me. Oh, Muzhong Chuyi wasn't one for emotional confrontations, so even though Yue Chengqing was clearly calling for him in his dream, he pretended not to hear. He closed his eyes and began to meditate where he was. He's so cruel. Yue Chengqing continued to mumble. The nightmare seemed to be torturing him. By the end, the confusion and heartbreak in his tone was almost tangible. Fourth uncle. The still childish youth whimpered tearfully. Muzhang Chuyi knitted his brows and was silent for a moment. When he could bear it no longer, he rose with a sweep of his sleeves and swiftly sat beside Yue Chengqing. He lowered his head to look at the young man. His elegant face, like moonlight on a frozen lake, showed an unmistakable reluctance and impatience. Yet he still moved the coat aside and brushed jade like porcelain fingers over Yue Chengqing's forehead. With that single touch, Muzhong Chuyi's expression changed. How is he? Jiang Yeshui asked. He has a high fever, replied Muzhong Chuyi. Fevers and colds were little more than nuisances to cultivators. A single dose of medicine was usually enough to cure them completely. Nevertheless, Yue Chengqing's condition was dismaying. Jiang Yeshui maneuvered his chair over to them. First, he carefully tucked the great coat around Yue Chengqing, then reached up to check his temperature. He was immediately alarmed. So hot. He shouldn't have a fever. Wu Zhangtuyi gazed down at Yue Chengqing's ruddy face. When I rescued him, I used the sacred heart technique. Moishi looked up at Muzhong Chuyi in surprise. Wasn't the sacred heart technique? Jiang Yeshe was also aghast. Xiaoju, how could you? What? Muzhong Chuyi retorted coldly. That's a forbidden technique. So? Why is it forbidden? Jiang Yeshe was silent. Expecting Muzhong Chuyi to abide by Chonghua's laws was like expecting a fish to live on land. Completely impossible. So now we know why he was especially cool with Gumang's request to keep it a secret. He's just like, okay, fine. The Sacred Heart technique was a forbidden healing spell. It could rapidly mend a grievously wounded body while ensuring that the patient would not catch any kind of cold or fever like illness that might weaken them. It was a powerful, simple, and crude technique that a cultivator could easily grasp without even any specialty in medicine. And yet, such a miraculous healing technique was nowhere near commonplace. Just as no person was perfect, no spell was infallible. Sacred Heart had a terrifying drawback. It made extreme requirements of the spellcaster's mind. The wielder's so called sacred heart needed to be pure and holy, free of any blemish. And while the cultivator was casting the healing spell, their mind must remain pure, without the slightest stray thought. A single faltering ripple and the spellcaster's heart vein would suffer damage. A mild case would greatly diminish their vital energy, and a severe case would result in instant death. Jiang Yeshui knew any attempt to reason with Muzhong Chuyi would to be futile, so he ventured hesitantly. Then, your body. Muzhong Chuyi ignored Jiang Yeshui's concern, instead lowering his head to check the pulse at Yue Chengqing's neck. After a few seconds, he opened his phoenix eyes and said, the Sacred Heart technique can prevent all common colds and illnesses, but Yue Chengqing still has a high fever. Is it because of the gu worm? Jiang Yeshui asked. Although Muzhong Chuyi didn't respond, he frowned slightly. This couldn't be caused by anything other than the gu. However, a poisonous insect that even the Sacred Heart technique couldn't suppress was sure to be enormously difficult to deal with. At the moment, they were completely in the dark as to the characteristics of the worm. All they could do was wait for Gumang to come back with some information that would help. Let's wait. Muzhong Chuyi laid his hand on Yue Chengqing's forehead, smoothing the mussed hair at his temples. Wait for Gumang to return. They had no other choice. The three of them stood guard over Yue Chengqing, meditating and recovering their strength as they silently sat inside the cave and waited for Gumang. Moixi's innate power was the strongest in the group. On top of that, the time mirror had only consumed his spiritual and vital energy. He hadn't been physically wounded. He had mostly recovered before a Shichun had passed. When Moxi opened his eyes, he found that Muzhong Chuyi and Jiang Yeshui were both still weak and nourishing their qi. Muzhong Chuyi's condition seemed especially poor. His elegant face was like frozen jade, his lips not merely bloodless, but tinged with sickly green. Uh-oh. Something was wrong. Moxi rose and walked over to Muzhong Chuyi, getting on one knee to look at him. Muzhong Shenxiang? Muzhong Chuyi didn't respond. Spiritual energy clashed between his knitted brows. He looked faintly pained. Well, it's obvious that man did not have a pure heart while doing the technique. He couldn't have. He has too much resentment and stuff buried inside of him. So, anyway, let's keep reading. Muzhong Chuyi didn't respond. Spiritual energy clashed between his knitted brows. He looked faintly pained. Moxi extended a hand and started in shock. Muzhong Chuyi's spiritual energy was so turbulent it showed signs of an impending qi deviation. He reached out at once to press 2 fingers to Muzhong Chuyi's temple, passing him spiritual energy. A long interval passed before Muzhong Chuyi slumped forward and hacked up a mouthful of filthy blood. Emerging from his meditative trance, he slowly opened his eyes and found Moxi's face with his unfocused gaze. Swiftly, he looked down and wiped at the bloodstains. Many thanks, he said, voice rough. Moxi knew Muzhong Chuyi was cold and antisocial. He didn't want to say too much, but he still pressed his lips together upon seeing Muzhong Chuyi so unwell. You should have felt it yourself. When you attracted the fire bats single-handedly and then used the sacred heart technique soon after, you damaged your heart vein. If you recklessly meditate under these circumstances, you'll fall prey to inner demons. Why didn't you say something? There's nothing to say, replied Muzhong Chuyi. Moxi stared pointedly. I asked Yihejuan to not speak of my injuries. Muzhong Chuyi continued. I don't want more people finding out, whether it's Yue Chenqing or... He paused, shooting a glance at Jiang Yeshui, who had entered an energy-gathering state. Or him. This was slightly strange. Everyone said the ignorant immortal was cold and aloof, unaffected by matters of the mortal world. He spent most of his days in seclusion and rarely showed his face in public. Moxi had previously only understood that he treated both his nephews poorly. In these recent interactions, however, he'd realized there was a marked difference in how vicious Muzhong Chuyi was to Jiang Yeshui in comparison to Yue Chenqing. Muzhong Chuyi tended to ignore Yue Chenqing and didn't like to waste words on him. But if Yue Chenqing really clung to him, acted pathetic, and went overboard with praise, Muzhong Chuyi might spare him a glance or a few words as his elder. Furthermore, Muzhong Chuyi was willing to use forbidden techniques to save Yue Chenqing, even sustaining injuries in the process. Which was to say, when all was said and done, Yue Chenqing at least had a small place in Muzhong Chuyi's heart. Yeah. But it was different with Jiang Yeshui. Jiang Yeshui's mother had been married to the same man as Muzhong Chuyi's adopted sister, Muzhong Huang. So, perhaps Muzhong Chuyi was hostile toward Jiang Yeshui because Muzhong Huang had been mistreated on account of Jiang Yeshui's mother. But there was more than hostility. There was also hatred. There was even... Moxi couldn't put his finger on it, but he felt there was some hidden adverse emotion filling Muzhong Chuyi's eyes. Fourth uncle, it hurts. Yue Chenqing called again in a weak voice, muttering helplessly in his fevered delirium. My head, it hurts. Muzhong Chuyi looked at the child curled up in the corner. Yue Chenqing called for him several more times, whimpering. Then he mumbled another hoarse name. Mama. Mama. I'm going to take a look at you guys' comments here for a second. Kylie says, I have a very sudden suspicion that Jiang Yeshui was the man in the black cloak and the spy for the Liao Kingdom. Oh my gosh. Him using a forbidden technique just suddenly gave me this theory. So hold on. It was Muzhong Chuyi that used the forbidden technique. Yes. Muzhong Chuyi is the one that used it. But I'm still with you though. I'm still with you. Maybe he is the cloaked man. Because why would he have to? So the only reason he would need to mask his voice, this black cloaked man, is because your voice would be recognizable. So absolutely, I'm like, okay, this person is definitely from Chonghua. Absolutely. Um, and then Anne says, huh, this would make sense. And says, by now he's super sus, so wouldn't put it past him. Oops, sorry for the got confused who was speaking. Yeah, it's sometimes it's like, yeah. I'm still with you though, that it's definitely possible that Jiang Yeshui is the cloaked guy. But yes, here in this case, it was Mu Zhongchuyi who risked his life and used the forbidden technique. And he did that right after he had did the like cutting his hand or whatever thing with the bats and stuff. So he's just really all hubbada bubbada, whatever hubbada bubbada means. So yes, let's get back to the reading really quickly. Okay. Mu Zhongchuyi stiffened. He was always aloof and indifferent whenever Morsi saw him, unaffected by the vicissitudes of human feeling, whether in life or death, joy or fury. That face clear as white jade rarely showed a ripple of disturbance. But now, Mu Zhongchuyi's face seemed to be tangled in 1,000 emotions. He gritted his teeth, looking hateful and angry. Always so disappointing and disobedient. What right do you have to call her? Mu Zhongchuyi! Sorry, that was me yelling out at him, not anyone in the book. But still, he took hold of Yue Chengqing's trembling hand. The youth's temperature was terrifyingly high. Mu Zhongchuyi grasped Yue Chengqing's fingers tight, his severe expression flashing with a hint of tender sorrow. In the end, he stiffly tried to soothe him. It's all right. It's okay. Yue Chengqing mumbled in his sleep. It hurts. I'm here. It'll be okay. It hurts so much. Mu Zhongchuyi's sword-like brows drew together sharply in anger. His patience had reached its limit. Bear with it. At least he tried. At least he tried. I'll give him that much. Oh my gosh. Morsi found himself speechless. Time passed like this. Eventually, Jiang Yeshui recovered most of his spiritual energy and woke from his trance. He looked around. Has Guxiong returned? Not yet, said Morsi. Jiang Yeshui went to Yue Chengqing as well, but with Mu Zhongchuyi present, there was no place for him, nor was he the one who ought to be holding Yue Chengqing's hand. His status in the Yue clan had always been thus. It was the same before he left the family, and it remained so now. Whether with his uncle or his brother, he was always the one pushed to the sidelines. He was the expendable one. Jiang Yeshui had long grown used to it. His wistful gaze paused only briefly on the hand Mu Zhongchuyi was holding before he spoke up. If his fever continues, why don't I use the Sacred Heart technique this time? Maybe swift footsteps outside the cave trampled the rest. We're back! We're back! We're back! Why'd you have to say it 3 times? Looking at comments really quick. Mu Zhongchuyi reprimands him on one hand, but on the other hand, he can't help but care a bit. Right? And he also said, this guy doesn't know how to handle himself. Yes. So, continuing. So Jiang Yeshui is thinking of using the Sacred Heart technique. Right after you just scolded, or not necessarily scolded, but scolded Mu Zhongchuyi for using it. Okay. Anyway, Gumang, we're back. Gumang charged into the cave. Following hesitantly at his heels was a half-transformed little demon, hiding behind Gumang and looking around in curiosity. Unbelievable. When Gumang left, he distinctly said he would catch a demon, but this little creature seemed to have followed him back instead. Not only was it trailing Gumang of its own volition, but it had even curled a fuzzy brown claw tightly around Gumang's sleeve, as if it had entered a tiger's den and Gumang was its trusted protector. Were Yue Chengqing awake, he would definitely have asked, "Bro, did you drug it?" But none of the three present would ask such a thing. Moshi stared at that delicate claw. He'd caught just a small glimpse of the little demon when it entered the cave. After that, it stuck close to Gumong, keeping its small body pressed behind him and refusing to show its face. Sorry for the wait, Gumong sighed. There are many demons on the island, but only a few who know anything of importance. Wu Yan is searching all over for us, so it took some time. How is our young Yuegongzi? He has a fever, probably caused by the goo worm. Murong Chuyi paused, eyes flickering to Gumong's back. Who's this? Oh, Gumong smiled, then waved a hand to show them the little claw hooked around his sleeve. Zhongzhong, come out. These are the people I told you about. That's such a cute name. Zhongzhong. Okay. I'm saying, I don't know if this is cute or creepy. Agreed. So, after a lengthy silence, a little face peeped out from behind Gumong, then quickly shrank back. Gumong turned and said consolingly, Don't worry, no one's going to hurt you. Only then did this little demon slowly and shyly step out from behind Gumong. She was a young female demon. Though her exact age was difficult to discern, her figure resembled that of an adolescent human girl. Upon closer examination, she wasn't a bat either. The fuzz that covered her dainty little body was tawny bird down. The fuzz that covered her dainty little body was tawny bird down. 1 second. Tawny bird. Okay. Do y'all want to see this bird? I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of ugly. Like, depending on what angle you're looking at. This is the bird. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so her name is Zhongzhong. She's a little spirit bird. She's a little bird spirit, not a demon. Gumag explained with a smile. Zhongzhong, this is Muzhong Chuyi, Muzhong Xiong. This is Jiang Yeshui, Jiang Xiong. This is. He glanced at Mo Xi and held his gaze this time. This is Mo Xi, Mo Xiong, he said, still smiling. They're all good people. Why don't you say hi? Zhongzhong seemed to be very timid. She'd kept her head down all this time. Only after Gumang prompted her did she gently raise her eyes. Her features possessed a blossoming beauty, shaming flowers and moon alike. Upon her delicate face were a pair of beautifully soulful eyes and naturally scarlet lips. Her pale forehead was marked with a red pistil. I'm Ajong, she murmured bashfully. I'm not a bird spirit. I'm just a half immortal from the feather tribe of Mount Xiuhua. And that's the end. And said, ew. Oh, God. This bird's not very good looking at all. So that concludes chapter 44. Yeah, so we have the sweet moment, but not really sweet moment with Yue Chenqing and Muzhong Chuyi. Him trying to comfort him and not necessarily failing, but like failing. And Gumang has come back with Zhongzhong, which is such a cute little. I want to be named Zhongzhong. Like I'm like, well, my Chinese name is Chen Juan, and I'm like Chuan Chuan or Jian Jian. Like, it ain't as cute. But Zhongzhong is so adorable. So anyway, that is chapter 94. We have Zhongzhong who has come into the picture. So let's just keep reading, shall we? Yeah. Chapter 95. Shushan takes it too far. Guy says, I think this is something lost in translation. Maybe they mean like when the tawny bird molts, it has fuzzy little feathers. I don't know. I'll reread the sentence. Upon closer examination, she wasn't a bat either. The fuzz that covered her dainty little body was tawny bird down. I think it's the word down that's throwing me off. Yeah. Yeah. Like if it just said the fuzz that covered her dainty little body was tawny bird, or um the fuzz that covered her dainty little body was tawny bird from the shoulders down or something, but the word down is what's thrown me off like a lot. So anyway, I still have like 20 minutes and this next chapter is also short. So I'm just gonna keep reading because I feel like ending with Zhong and introducing herself is such a weird ending spot. Can you be quiet? Okay. So chapter 95, Shuxiong takes it too far. And what does that mean? I don't know, but I'm concerned. So the feathered tribe of Mount Jiuhua, everyone stood in shock at these words. Members of the feathered tribe were born with half immortal bodies, and pure immortal blood ran in their veins. No matter how diluted by the currents of time, the feathered tribe was still the most mysterious race and the one closest to the gods. The feather tribe is reclusive and unpredictable. They reside in the immortal realm of Peach Blossom Springs and may go hundreds of years without setting foot in the mortal world. Muzhong Chuyi's eyes scanned Zhongzhong, but you don't seem to conform to any of that. Zhongzhong immediately flushed. "Uh, I was very young when I was brought here. I didn't grow up in the feather tribe. That's why I'm not really the same as other tribe members." "Who brought you here?" Jiang Yeshe asked. "Was it Wu Yan?" At the name of the Bat Island's ruler, Zhongzhong shuddered, swaying on her feet. At first, she shook her head in fright, but after a few moments, she remembered she was safe and hastily nodded. Jiang Yeshe turned to Gumang. "She seems to be terribly afraid." Gumang patted Zhongzhong's head soothingly. "Why don't you go sit by the fire and rest a little? I'll talk to them." Zhongzhong obediently went. It couldn't be helped. Some men had a natural charm when it came to the opposite sex. Gumang's comforting words were satin soft, but if Morsi were to say the same, the girl would probably think he was threatening her and that she'd be buried on the spot if she didn't comply. Jiang Yeshui watched Zhongzhong pick her way over the fire pit and asked Gumang, "Should we get her some tea and snacks?" But Zhongzhong promptly sat next to the fire and stuck her hand in up to her wrist. She did what? Okay, just sticking our hands in fires. Cool. She grabbed a handful of flames as if she were scooping out a watermelon, then lowered her head to take dainty bites. Jiang Yeshe stared in silence. After a pause, Moishi turned to Gumang. "It's barely been 2 Shushan, and you've not only found such a useful individual, you've also won her trust." Gumang smiled smugly and cocked his head. "Aren't I amazing?" "How did you manage it?" Gumang stroked his chin. "Maybe I look too deceptively kind and sweet. Shihajun, weren't you docile for me too?" "Hiya. Men who smile easily make the best liars. People like you, Shihajun. You can't get away with it. You're a great beauty, to be sure, but every day you're giving orders to beat or kill people. You exude viciousness. Forget Shurchan. Even if you had 2 days and 2 nights, you couldn't find anyone willing to come back with you." Those gentle blue eyes blinked up at Morsi. They were the mild color of a clear sky after rain, but they shone with a provocative glint. "Shouldn't you do something about this? Come on, you're already 30, yet you still don't have a wife." So now you're just taunting him. Can we not? Okay. This was clearly meant to get on Moshi's nerves. Gumag expected that Morsi would definitely fly into a rage, and indeed his eyes swiftly clouded over in anger. Gumang smiled insincerely and waited for him to blow up. But Morsi only glared at him. As this tall man glared, he seemed almost wronged, the rims of his eyes growing red. Morsi silently turned away, biting his lip, holding himself back from speaking another word. Good for you, Morsi. I'm Team Morsi right now. Gumong, stop. Just stop, please. Right? Oh my gosh. It's like he wants to fight. Yes. Like you want to fight so bad, don't you? Neither Jiang Yeshui nor Mu Zhongchuyi caught the emotion in Morsi's eyes, but the awkwardness and hostility between Morsi and Gumang was something even a fool could see. Into this uncomfortable atmosphere, Jiang Yeshui gently said, Gu Shuxiong, why must you say that about Shi Hejun? Deep and abiding passion is a rare thing. It's not like you don't know why he hasn't yet wed. Gumang blanched slightly, but his smile remained fixed. Jiangxiong, what do you mean by this? What do I know about? Jiang Yeshui didn't notice the cold sharpness beneath his sweet exterior. He replied frankly, Princess Mengzi has been sick for a long time, and even after so many years of convalescence, she still isn't suited for marriage. Shi Hejun has been waiting all these years because of deep passion, and not because of what you said. He paused and sighed, exuding viciousness, and no one liking him. The icy light in Gumang's eyes slowly softened. He gradually relaxed. He smiled, glancing meaningfully at Moshi. Oh, so that's how it is. Gumang began to examine Morsi with a new and clinical look in his eyes, as if they had never touched, as if he was distantly curious. He looked Morsi up and down several times, assessing this man's tall physique, his chiseled and straight nose, his strong and slender fingers, and his long, straight legs. He was taking it too far. Gumang obviously understood Morsi best, understood the way his throat bobbed in the thick of passion, understood how his brows knitted when he could no longer restrain himself, eyes flashing with light, understood how strong his hips were, how unbridled his motions when he let go of his restraint, understood what positions he liked, and how long he could torment someone in bed. Still, Gumang smiled as if he had never felt Morsi's skin on his. With Shi Hejun's physique, really could take Princess Mengzi's life. Probably, yes. Morsi's face was ashen. He stood silent for a moment. Finally, he could no longer endure it and turned to walk away. Jiang Yeshui eyed Morsi's silhouette, standing at the mouth of the cave, and frowned with a sigh. Gumang, why are you constantly poking his sore spots ever since you recovered, making things unpleasant for him? Gumang hugged his knees and barked out a perfunctory laugh. It's just a habit. I used to like teasing him. Back then, he could handle it, but it seems he's lost the skill. What a shame. It's his own fault that his mind only grows narrower. Jiangxiong, do you think it's because he only gets prettier as he ages, so he becomes arrogant because of his looks? Jiang Yeshui helplessly shook his head. As he made to respond, Mu Zhongchuyi impatiently said, Can't you two focus on the task at hand? Talk about that later. I want to, but it's not that easy. Gumang sighed. Zhongzhong needs to recover some strength first. She'll have to assess his pulse before we can find out how to cure him. As he spoke, he turned to look at the maiden from the feathered tribe still crouched by the fire pit eating flames, then very fairly made a judgment. Miss Zhongzhong is still weak. We can't do much, so we should let her rest properly. Although Moshi had walked to the periphery of the cave, the small space, blah, blah, the space was small enough that he overheard Gumang. That was why he used to be a favorite among girls. He always sincerely, instinctively, deftly, and elegantly helped a maiden in distress. Even if the maiden in question was just a Moshi shot a glance at Zhongzhong and thought, just an ugly female bird demon whose feathers haven't even grown in. Well, Moshi, that's not very nice. Muzhong Chuyi observed that Zhongzhong was truly in poor condition. He gave up insisting and turned to ask, that whoever, why did she kidnap one of the feathered tribe? You mean Wu Yan? Asked Gumang. Wu Yan took her so she could cultivate to immortality. Cultivate into immortality. Mm. Do you guys remember what the Shangao said before it summoned the Time Mirror? It wasn't much, but it hid many strange facts. It said the Dream Butterfly Islands were abundant with spiritual energy, so the demons here had gradually started to cultivate by fasting. The Bat Queen wholeheartedly wants to ascend, so she rarely killed in recent years and hasn't needed to catch humans for food. Really quickly, I don't remember because it's been a while since I read Arha, but was the Dream Butterfly Islands in that series as well? Isn't that where Muzhong, Chu Wanning and Chu Wanning was younger, smaller in that time? Or am I just remembering wrong? If y'all remember, when he was Shasani. Okay, anyway, just let me know because I don't remember if anyone knows. Let me keep reading. Okay, what was wrong with any of that? Jiang Yeshui asked. Too much, Gumang said. Chonghua doesn't practice any kind of demonic cultivation, so its cultivators have little understanding of demons or evil spirits. But when I was in the Liao Kingdom, he paused, probably out of consideration for Jiang Yeshui. He lowered his voice when he mentioned the Liao Kingdom and didn't linger on it. When I was there, I read many scrolls. Spiritual energy is split into two types, yin and yang. We cultivators take in yang energy and walk the path of gods and immortals, while demons take in yin energy and walk the path of devils. Gumag explained, which is to say, as a demon, Wu Yan's body is undoubtedly more compatible with yin energy. Killing less often may decrease her yin energy, but it can't provide her with the pure yang essence needed to attain immortality. Jiang Yeshui thought this over. So, in other words, a demon cultivating into immortality would go against the natural order? That's pretty much what it means, Gumang said. A demon attaining immortality is like a mortal entering demonhood. Both are paths that defy the law of nature. At these words, Moshi couldn't help but turn to glance silently at the sliver of Gumang's profile visible in the firelight. He considered that Gumang could be regarded as a mortal who had entered demonhood. Even with his spiritual core shattered, he could still use demonic energy to summon demonic weapons. However, the price he'd paid was the loss of two souls and the repeated tempering of his body. But Gumang cared for none of this and continued his explanation. In any case, Wu Yan is the queen of the Bat tribe, and this tribe is descended from the offspring of the Feather tribe and demonic beasts. Although some adulterated immortal energy still flows within their bodies, they possess mostly demonic beast energy. If her cultivation technique is unsuited to her demonic nature, it would consume a great deal of spiritual energy before she becomes an immortal and accelerate her aging in the process. He then asked, so here's the question for you. If you were Wu Yan, what would you do at this point? Find a way to slow down the consumption, Jiang Yeshe replied. Correct. As Gumang spoke, he glanced at Zhongzhong beside the bonfire. The best way for Wu Yan to slow down the rate of spiritual energy consumption is to increase the amount of immortal energy from the Feather tribe in her own body. That's why she took the risk of going to the Feather tribe's realm and kidnapping one. Zhongzhong was still carefully eating flames out of her cupped palms. From time to time, she reached out the little claw to stir the fire, and then scooped up another handful of red gold light and nibbled at it. The color had already returned to her breathtaking face, but she was still up visibly nervous and frail. Muzhong Chuyi was a grandmaster artificer who never missed a detail. After looking over her from head to toe, his sharp brows furrowed. What's that on her neck? Gumang sighed. Those are bloodletting scars. Bloodletting? Jiang Keshue's eyes widened. Gumang nodded. Correct. Since Wu Yan is basically a leaking jug, she's been maintaining her own vital energies by taking regular pills made of Miss Rongzhong's blood. I found her in Wu Yan's pill refining room. Jiang Yeshui frowned. She's such an important resource, and Wu Yan's pill refining room must be strictly forbidden. No one would have pointed it out to you. So how did you think to look for it? Gumong smiled. Who said no one pointed it out? The one who pointed me toward the Bat Queen's pill room is right here. Who? Jiang Yeshui exclaimed. Muzhong Shensheng. A beat of silence. Muzhong Chuyi stared coldly at Gumong. What do you mean? Flames danced in those subtly imposing phoenix eyes. Are you accusing me of working with these Are you accusing me of working with these damn birds? No, no, no. You're so beautiful. How could I? Gumang waved his hands. I meant. He shot an apprehensive glance at Jiang Yeshui, then turned to look at Mo Xi. He scratched his nose, embarrassed. It all started that day at Peach Blossom Lake. Gumang cleared his throat. Didn't I catch you bathing? And that's the end. And that's the official end. I can't read anymore. So we can chat just like, okay. So this chapter, I need to listen to it again to really absorb the information. Was anybody else confused? Because Kylie said, why does it end that way? Or am I misunderstanding something? I don't think you're misunderstanding anything. I feel like I need to read this again because it was a bit confusing. So far, the one thing I do understand is that Zhongzhong comes from a feathered tribe that are the closest to gods they could possibly be. And she was locked up in the Bat Queen's prison for pill refining. The purpose of this pill refining, hold on. Let me go back to the page. Okay, so the Bat Queen is a demon, basically. So that means she has yang energy, but she wants to ascend to godhood. So she needs yin energy, or yen for how people in America pronounce it. So she's going against the natural order and trying to get yin energy, which I'm assuming she does get from doing something. Hold on. Sending offspring. Okay, yeah. So she's able to, I guess, use the feathered tribe bird's blood or whatever because she is a descendant from their offspring, but she's also a descendant of demonic beasts. So anyway, let's see. She has immortal energy in her body, the Bat Queen. She has it, but when she cultivates techniques that go against her demonic nature, it consumes a lot of her spiritual energy. And that accelerates her aging process. So she was refining Zhongzhong into, like, I guess her blood into pills and stuff to stop that aging process. Yes. The best way for Wu Yan to slow down the spiritual energy consumption is to increase the amount of immortal energy from the feathered tribe in her own body. Yeah. So that's why she kidnapped Zhongzhong. Yep. Okay. Yep, that settles all of that. So hopefully that cleared it up. I know I was kind of stumbling my way through it, but I wanted to make sure we were all understanding. You said, okay, so I was understanding correctly. Yes. And for me, at the time I was reading, it didn't make sense because, like I said, like my retention goes down a little bit when I read out loud because I'm focusing on trying to sound like the characters and make sure I read correctly, blah, blah, blah. But now that I've gone back, okay, yes. So that's what that is. Okay. That is a weird spot to end man. That is still a weird spot to end, though. It's like, so now we have that Muzhong Chuyi is the one that led him to finding where she refines her pills. And he's not accusing Muzhong Chuyi of working with the birds, but it has something to do with when he was at Peach Blossom Lake and he caught Muzhong Chuyi bathing. So I don't know. Okay. So now we have I mean, I'm not reading anymore, but we have 34, 15. Oh, such a small amount. It almost makes me wish I had time to read. Man, it would have just been cool to finish out the book with you guys. But alas, here we are at the end of chapter 95, and we have 19 pages left. Technically 18 because one of them is a picture. I'm sitting here fighting with myself. Like, I can be late to the feedback session. My stuff isn't until the end anyway. I mean, it's okay if I miss it. We record. So the mentorship that I'm in, they record the live sessions. Okay. So for anyone who ever misses anything, they could just go back and watch, yada, yada, yada. I usually just like there to be supportive and see the advice she gives other people to see if it'll be helpful for me as well. And then get to my, thing. But so few pages left. Kylie says there are 2 chapters, 20 pages left of this volume. I might have to read these on my own, then go back to listen to your recording when it comes back. It comes out. And Stacy says, I just keep having questions when the chapter's in. Right? I think that's the other thing where I'm like tempted to be late because I'm like, what's happening here? I don't like the way it's ending. Oh, let me think about this. Okay, we could always do a short live later. That way you don't miss your feedback meeting. You are so right. We could do that, actually. Let's just aim for 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's the time. We'll come back and just finish these chapters because, like, I want to know. I'm so confused. What? I'm so confused. So we'll come back. So please don't read. Please don't read without me. Just give me 2.5 hours. And we're going to come back to this live session and just go ahead and finish it out because why not? So we're going to end this book today, you guys. Okay. That's so exciting. I guess I don't have anything to say because the last chapter was so like, what? Yes, I don't really have any words about it. If you guys do, you can definitely share them. This has been quite an interesting ride. And I just want to know. I want to know more about Muzhong Chuyi and where he falls into play into this, because that was totally unexpected. And I can't even begin to even make a guess as to how he's involved in this at all. So anyway, what? Where's my eye? I don't know where my eye. This is what happens. I'm looking at the camera instead of just knowing where my eye is. What I even.